So, Physics Project by Stephen, Anthony, and Brandon. So, this is our experiment question. How much time would it take for different objects to float above the surface of the water from the bottom of the tub? So, how does this experiment question link to the wider world? So, by linking to the wider world, we mean that we can explain the reason why some enormous and heavy boats float and why some coins sink. And after doing this experiment, we found out the similarities of these objects. They float because their density is below 1, which is the density of the water. So these are the keywords that we find essential for the experiment. So buoyancy, ability of something to float in water or in any other fluid, and density, the quantity of atoms in a given area of space, are the most important ones. Hypothesis. We predict that the material with the lowest density float above the surface of the water the fastest, since the decrease of the volume means a decrease of force area. So this is our variables table. The independent variable is the different objects. Independent variable is the time taken for the objects to float, and the control variables are listed above. We think that the same volume of water and the same environment are the most important ones. The equipment list. So these are the objects we used, and the one that had the lowest density was a balloon. The one that had the highest density was the apple. So these are the procedures we followed. So we think the sixth step is the most important since we had to make sure our data was accurate by doing 3 trials. So these are the results we collected, and as you can see that the styrofoam was the fastest to float above the surface of the water, and the balloon wasn't the fastest. The chopsticks was actually the slowest to float above the surface of the water. So these are the densities we collected. As you can see, the apple had the highest density, and styrofoam was second lowest. The balloon was the lowest, but it wasn't the fastest. So now we can already see that our hypothesis is incorrect and not supported. So this is the graph we made for the density. So as you can see, the balloon was slightly shorter than the styrofoam on the bars here. And the apple has the longest bar, which is 0.996, closest to 1. So this is the graph we made for comparing um, the bars, and so it makes the data even more clear. So the styrofoam was slightly faster than the balloon, and the chopsticks took the longest time. But there's a trial for the clipper that took actually the longest time, but by comparing the average of the chopsticks and the clipper, chopsticks still took a longer time. So this is the graph data with the table and the data with it. So this is 3D, and this one is 2D. So the styrofoam for 3 trials are lowest compared to other trials. I mean other objects. Discussion of results. So according to the data we collected, our hypothesis is obviously not supported and incorrect. Since we predict that object would float above the surface the fastest, it had the lowest density, which is the balloon. But the balloon wasn't the fastest; it was the second, the fastest. The fastest was the styrofoam. And now we also found out the lightness and heaviness does not affect the buoyancy. And we only measured 7 objects since we didn't have time to do the 8th. We are incredibly sorry for the lack of time management. So if we had another chance for this investigation, we would make the tank um, even deeper, since this tub was obviously too shallow for the experiment, and maybe this is the reason why data are so weird and inaccurate. Thank you, everyone.